Not just live there, but actually just for traveling, you would have to pay a lot of money, you would have to wait, give your passport. So Koreans actually should really, enjoy their privilege of being able to travel to so many countries visa-free, without having to be interrogated like a terrorist at border control, which unfortunately 안녕하세요. 저는 오스트리아와 세르비아에서 온 드라가입니다. 반갑습니다. Originally, I come from Serbia because my parents are Serbian, but I was born and raised in Austria. Culturally, I feel slightly more Serbian just because that's the culture I grew up with. I spoke Serbian at home with my parents, and every vacation or holiday, my parents took me back to Serbia, and that's where all my relatives are. I also have a great group of friends there. So I always felt very close to that culture, whereas when it comes to Austria, I was born there and I lived there my whole life, but I actually didn't go to an Austrian school. I went to French school. So I was surrounded by international people and never just with Austrians. So I always had more of like an international feel. I do not identify myself with just one country, I guess. I guess that's what third culture kids have to go through. Yeah, but it's different. I came as a foreigner to Korea, right? I came at the age of 21, I think. I haven't been living my whole life in Korea, so I know that I'm a foreigner in this country, and all I can do is try to learn as much as possible about the country, learn the language, learn to integrate within this society if I want to stay here for longer. However, I don't expect to be considered fully Korean unless I live now for the next 20 years of my life in Korea and I feel more Korean than any other nationality. I would hope that people could see me as a Korean even though I'm a foreigner. I came to Korea 2.5 years ago for the first time. Back then, I went to a language course and I finished level 1, but I couldn't continue because I had to move back to Austria due to citizenship issues, because back then I was switching from the Serbian citizenship to the Austrian one. So I never got to finish it. But once I got the citizenship, it took unfortunately another 1.5 years until I got it. I decided to move back to Korea and finish my course and learn Korean well, hopefully stay in the country to make some new experiences. Yeah, so I didn't exactly have a visa problem. It was more me having to move back to the country because of citizenship. I was switching citizenships, that's why I had to be in the country working in Austria to finish that process. But having the Austrian citizenship allows me to have more visa options here in Korea and for me to stay here as well if I want to stay here for longer. Different citizenships have different amount of strength and power. Korea is a perfect example of that. Korea is the third strongest passport in the world. So Koreans actually should really, enjoy their privilege of being able to travel to so many countries visa-free, without having to be interrogated like a terrorist at border control, which unfortunately happened a lot to me because of my Serbian passport, because it's not in the EU. So, So when you go at border control, even in Korea, there's always a line for nationals and a line for foreigners. Usually the line for foreigners is very, very long, but now because of Corona, there are not many foreigners coming here into Korea, so the line is very, very short. So actually, once I came to Korea last year in June, it was still in the middle of the pandemic, so I actually got to skip the whole queue, whereas a lot of Koreans had to wait really for a long time in the line. I was lucky back then, but I think once Corona finishes, like all the tourists will start coming back, and that's when people will probably have to wait for a long time until they... Korea is the third strongest passport in the world, which means that they get access to 189 countries in the world, which is crazy to think about because when I used to have a Serbian passport, I couldn't go to many countries. I had to get a visa for almost every country. Even when I studied in the UK, I had a student visa, but I still had to go to the non-EU border, and I always had to wait at least an hour or two to pass the border control. So I think Koreans are really lucky to be able to have such a privilege of traveling and, not getting questioned at the border control as much. Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, maybe they're second. I think it changes probably year to year. Yeah, right now they're the second in the world. Either way, second or third, very impressive. When I had the Serbian passport, I had to get visas for a lot of countries to be able to even just travel there. Not just live there, but actually just for traveling, You would have to pay a lot of money, you would have to wait, give your passport away, fill in these application forms, and then once you're at the border, you get interrogated. They ask you a lot of questions, assuming that you are coming into the country with bad intentions, which usually is not the case. And that happened to me a lot even when I studied in the UK. I was just a student and I was studying there, and every single time I went back into the UK, I got interrogated, and sometimes the way that they were asking me questions were getting very uncomfortable, and I even got nervous because I was like, did I do something wrong? Even though I didn't do anything wrong. But when it comes to Korea, whether I had the Serbian passport or the Austrian passport, I was treated the same, and I never had any uncomfortable experiences. I think Koreans are very professional and friendly at the border control. Yeah, I've had some friends come over to Austria, and I took them also to Italy once. I've had Korean friends come visit me in Europe, and they didn't need a visa for any of these countries. They could just come there as long as they buy their ticket and they come into the country. It's completely fine. So yeah, I was kind of jealous that they don't have to go through all of the trouble that I usually have to go through. Honestly, I mean, I wouldn't have an issue with that. Who knows if I end up marrying a Korean guy in the future? I mean, we never know, right? I would want to maybe get the Korean passport. Though the Austrian passport is also very good right now. I'm not complaining. It's such an upgrade from what I used to have. Yeah, anyone who has a Korean passport can consider themselves lucky. I just have a lot of Korean friends that are so helpful in so many ways. Just because I live in Korea and because I'm connected to Korean culture, they take the extra mile of helping me with any issue that I have. And I feel like that kind of translates into a feeling of 정, right? It's kind of the solidarity that people have even when going through hardships or just feeling of solidarity, right? 오늘은 제가 한국 여권이 부러운 이유 얘기했습니다. 영상이 좋았다면 구독, 좋아요 눌러주세요. 다음에 봐요.